Welcome back to Coremates. If you're here today, take a breath with us. Not a deep one, not a forced one, just the kind your body is ready for. There's a quiet question a lot of people are carrying right now. Why can't I seem to move forward anymore? Why doesn't motivation work the way it used to? Why do I care, but still feel stuck? And maybe the hardest part is this. You start wondering if something is wrong with you. So today, we want to gently reframe that story. Because what looks like a lack of motivation on the outside is very often a loss of trust on the inside. Not laziness, not weakness, not failure, but a nervous system that learned somewhere along the way that trying didn't feel safe anymore. This episode is for anyone who feels tired of pushing, tired of starting over, tired of being told to just try harder. We're going to talk about what actually happens when self-trust breaks, how it disconnects you from motivation, and how to rebuild it slowly without pressure, shame, or forcing yourself into action. Stay with us. This one is about coming back into alignment with yourself. Let's start with something important. Motivation doesn't disappear randomly. Your brain doesn't wake up one day and decide to stop caring. What it does is respond to patterns. If trying has led to disappointment, if effort has led to burnout, if hope has led to self-blame, your nervous system quietly learns, maybe it's safer not to try at all. And this is where people get it wrong. They think motivation is about willpower, about discipline, about pushing through resistance. But motivation is actually deeply emotional. It's built on trust. Trust that your effort will matter. Trust that you won't abandon yourself halfway through. Trust that failure won't turn into self-punishment. When that trust breaks, motivation steps back. Not to sabotage you, but to protect you. From a neuroscience perspective, this makes complete sense. Your brain is constantly asking one question. Is this safe? When you've experienced repeated stress, criticism, or pressure, your brain starts associating effort with threat. So instead of dopamine, the let's go chemical, your body releases cortisol, the stress hormone. And cortisol doesn't say, try harder. It says, avoid, pause, protect. That's why motivation feels unreachable. Your system isn't lazy, it's cautious. It's like your inner voice is saying, I can't promise you that trying won't hurt again, so maybe we don't try. That's not weakness. That's survival. A lot of people lost trust in themselves quietly, not through one big failure, but through small moments of self-betrayal.
You said you'd rest, and didn't.
You said you'd stop when you were overwhelmed and push through. You said you'd be kind to yourself and weren't. Over time, your inner system learns, I can't rely on myself to keep me safe. And when trust erodes, motivation can't stand on its own. So if you're sitting there thinking, I want things again, that's not a motivation problem. That's a trust repair moment. And the beautiful thing? Trust isn't rebuilt through big promises. It's rebuilt through consistency, gentleness, and small follow-through. Most people think self-trust breaks in dramatic moments. A big failure, a public mistake, something obvious. But more often, it breaks silently. It breaks when you keep overriding your own limits. When your body says, slow down, and your mind says, just push through. When you feel exhausted, but tell yourself you have no right to be. You don't notice it at first. You keep functioning. You keep showing up. But something inside starts to withdraw. Because self-trust isn't built on success. It's built on how you respond to yourself during stress. Every time you ignore your needs to meet expectations, every time you minimize your feelings to stay productive, every time you push past your capacity to prove something, your system records that. Not as ambition, but as abandonment. Burnout doesn't come from doing too much, it comes from doing too much while feeling unsafe. This is where burnout gets misunderstood. Burnout isn't just exhaustion. It's exhaustion without emotional support, even from yourself. You can work hard and feel energized when trust is intact. But when effort becomes paired with pressure, fear, or self-criticism, your nervous system starts to associate action with danger. And slowly, very slowly, it stops offering you motivation. That's why people say things like, I used to be so driven. I don't recognize myself anymore. I don't know where my spark went.
The spark didn't vanish. It retreated.
Perfectionism, the fastest way to lose self-trust. Perfectionism is one of the most efficient trust breakers because it turns effort into a test. Every attempt becomes a performance. Every beginning carries the weight of your worth. So your brain learns, if I can't do it perfectly, maybe I shouldn't start at all. That's not procrastination. That's self-protection. And perfectionism often hides behind high standards, but emotionally, it feels like conditional acceptance. I'll support you when you succeed. I'll be kind when you get it right. Over time, your inner system stops trusting that trying is safe because the cost of failing feels too high. Why pressure kills momentum. Pressure creates urgency, but not safety. And without safety, your nervous system won't open. It won't explore. It won't take risks. It tightens. That's why motivational speeches don't work when trust is broken. They add pressure to a system that already feels cornered. Self-trust grows in environments where effort is allowed to be imperfect, where rest isn't punished, and where progress isn't constantly measured. When those conditions disappear, motivation follows. If this resonates, I want you to hear something clearly. You didn't lose motivation because you failed. You lost it because you kept showing up without feeling supported, even by yourself. And that means it can be rebuilt, not by forcing action, but by changing the relationship you have with yourself while you act. There's a moment a lot of people don't talk about, the moment right before starting. Not the task itself, not the work, but the instant where you're about to begin. And something inside you tightens. That moment is where self-trust reveals itself. Because starting isn't just an action, it's a promise. A promise that you'll stay with yourself. A promise that you won't quit halfway and shame yourself for it. A promise that you won't turn effort into self-judgment. When trust is shaky, that promise feels risky. So instead of feeling, I can't do this, what's actually happening is, I don't know if I can protect myself if this gets hard. That hesitation isn't laziness. It's caution. This is why people freeze in front of simple things. Sending an email, opening a notebook, starting a workout, replying to a message. Objectively, these are small, but emotionally, they carry history. Each task is unconsciously linked to questions like, what if I disappoint myself again? What if I lose momentum? What if I confirm the story that I can't follow through? So your nervous system slows everything down. It's not that the task is heavy. It's that the meaning attached to it is. Starting becomes symbolic. It's no longer about doing the thing. It's about what doing the thing says about you. Here's the part most people don't realize. They're not afraid of failing. They're afraid of trying. And then abandoning themselves again. Because that hurts more than not starting at all. Every unfinished attempt leaves a small bruise on self-trust. So your system learns to minimize exposure. Not to avoid growth, but to avoid emotional injury. And when people say, I don't feel motivated to begin, what they often mean is, I don't feel safe to begin. Motivation doesn't arrive first when trust is broken. Safety does. Your system needs evidence that effort won't turn into self-punishment, that pausing won't turn into guilt, that slowing down won't turn into self-attack. Until that evidence exists, motivation stays quiet. So if you've been waiting to feel ready before starting, that readiness isn't a feeling. It's a relationship. And right now, that relationship is asking to be repaired, not rushed. Once you understand this, something changes. You stop asking, how do I push myself to start? And you begin asking, what would make starting feel safer? That question opens doors. Self-trust rarely disappears overnight. It fades slowly through patterns that look normal, responsible, even productive from the outside. Most people think trust is broken by big failures. But more often, it's worn down by small, repeated moments where you override yourself. Moments where you say yes when your body said no. Moments where you push past exhaustion and call it discipline. Moments where you ignore your own signals because now isn't the time. Over time, your nervous system starts to notice something. My voice doesn't actually matter here. Pattern 1. Overpromising to feel worthy. One of the most common patterns is overcommitting. You promise more than you can realistically give. Not because you're dishonest, but because you want to believe in a version of yourself who never struggles. So you say, I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it perfectly. I'll stay consistent this time. And when reality interrupts, because it always does, self-trust takes another hit.
Your system doesn't hear, I tried. It hears, you promised and didn't follow through, even if the promise was unreasonable to begin with. Pattern 2. Turning effort into self-evaluation.
This one is subtle but powerful. Instead of effort being an experience, it becomes a verdict. You don't just work. You judge. Was it enough? Did I do it right? Why didn't I do more? And when effort turns into evaluation, your nervous system starts associating action with threat.
So eventually, it says, let's not start. It's safer. Not because you're incapable, but because every attempt feels like walking into court. Pattern 3. Waiting for the right version of yourself.
Another trust-eroding habit is postponing action until you feel better, more confident, more focused, more healed, more disciplined. But here's the quiet damage in that. You teach your system that your current self is not allowed to participate.
You're always preparing to live, but never letting yourself be. And your nervous system learns, I only show up when I'm ideal. That condition makes trust impossible. Pattern 4. Self-punishment disguised as accountability.
This one often hides behind productivity culture. You miss a day, you double the pressure. You lose momentum, you criticize harder. You rest, you compensate with guilt. But punishment doesn't create consistency. It creates fear.
And fear doesn't build trust. It builds avoidance. Your system isn't resisting growth, it's resisting harm.
When you step back and look at these patterns, a truth emerges. Your system didn't stop trusting you because you failed. It stopped trusting you because effort stopped feeling safe.
And the good news is, patterns learned through pressure can be unlearned through safety. Which means the solution isn't pushing harder. It's changing how you relate to yourself while trying.
If self-trust was broken through pressure, disappointment, and self-abandonment, then it can only be rebuilt through experiences of safety, follow-through, and gentleness. Not all at once, not dramatically, but consistently enough that your nervous system starts to relax its grip.
And this is where people usually overcomplicate things. They look for a mindset shift, a breakthrough, a new system. But self-trust doesn't live in your thoughts. It lives in your body. Your body is the one keeping score. Step 1. Shrink the promise until it feels almost too easy.
Here's the first repair point, and it's counterintuitive. Stop making promises that impress you. Start making promises your nervous system can believe. Not, I'll work on this for an hour. But, I'll open the document. Not, I'll be consistent all week. But, I'll show up for 5 minutes today.
When you keep promises this small, something powerful happens. Your system starts collecting evidence. Oh, we actually do what we say now. That's the foundation of trust. Step 2. Stay with yourself when energy drops.
Self-trust isn't built when things go well. It's built in the moment when motivation fades. And you don't turn on yourself. When you say, okay, we're tired. Let's adjust instead of quitting. That moment matters more than finishing strong.
Because this is where your nervous system learns something new. Effort doesn't lead to abandonment anymore. You don't disappear on yourself when it gets uncomfortable. Step 3. Remove the threat from effort.
For many people, effort is loaded with threat. Threat of judgment. Threat of disappointment. Threat of self-attack. So we have to neutralize that.
This sounds like, there's no punishment if this doesn't go perfectly. I don't need to earn rest. I can stop without shaming myself. When effort becomes emotionally safe, your system stops resisting it. Step 4. Let dopamine come from completion, not pressure.
There's a neuroscience piece here that matters. Dopamine isn't just about reward. It's about anticipation and follow-through. When your brain expects completion but gets self-criticism instead, dopamine drops. Motivation collapses.
But when you complete small actions and respond with kindness, your brain starts associating action with relief, not threat. That's how motivation quietly returns. Step 5. Track trust, not productivity.
This one changes everything. Instead of asking, "What did I accomplish today?" ask, "Did I stay with myself today?" Did you listen when your body asked for a pause? Did you follow through on a small promise? Did you adjust instead of quitting? Those are trust deposits. And trust compounds. When self-trust starts repairing, effort stops feeling heavy. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop fighting yourself inside it. You begin to feel something subtle but powerful. I have my own back. There's a moment, and it doesn't announce itself. When you realize something has changed. You don't wake up transformed. You don't suddenly feel unstoppable. You just notice that starting no longer feels dangerous. You sit down to do something, and your chest doesn't tighten the way it used to. You pause when you need to, and you don't punish yourself for it. You move forward, not because you're pushing, but because you trust yourself to stay. It's not excitement. It's steadiness. You stop negotiating with yourself all day. You stop bracing for the moment you'll give up. You stop making every effort mean something about your worth. There's less noise inside, and that quiet can feel unfamiliar at first. Almost suspicious. Like, am I missing something? Should I be doing more? But then you realize, this is what it feels like when your nervous system isn't on guard. Motivation comes back differently now. It's not urgent. It's not loud. It shows up as willingness. You start because you can. You continue because it feels aligned. You stop because you trust yourself to return. And that changes everything. You don't need dramatic resets anymore. You don't burn out and restart. You don't rely on pressure to move. You rely on relationship. Your relationship with yourself becomes the anchor. This is the part that people don't talk about enough. When you trust yourself, life doesn't feel like something you're chasing. It feels like something you're participating in. You make plans and adjust them without shame. You set boundaries and keep them without guilt. You try, and you stay kind even when it's imperfect. And slowly, you start to recognize yourself again. Not the version that's always striving, but the one that's grounded. The one that knows, I don't have to abandon myself to move forward. If this episode resonated, if something in you softened or recognized itself, let that be enough for today. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need a plan. Just notice the moments where you stay. That's where trust grows. If you're on this path, rebuilding trust, gently, honestly, we're really glad you're here. And if you know someone who's been calling themselves unmotivated, when what they've really lost is trust, share this episode with them. It might change how they see themselves. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We're going to keep having these conversations slowly, deeply, and with care. Same space. Same softness. Until next time, stay with yourself. You're learning how to trust again.